For people who didn't meet John Madden, that we listened to him or we watched him, you were friends with him, you were close with him. What didn't we see with John Madden?
What you saw is what you got. And people say to me, well, what was he really like? And I said, he was really like pretty much what you saw. He was full of life. He was full of energy. He was a great conversationalist. I said the other day, a great teacher, but a terrific listener and wanted to learn, was very curious, loved, traveling around the country, being with people. And he enjoyed that. And there wasn't anything about John that said, hey, look, I'm a big celebrity. I'm one of the most recognizable people in the country. No, it was none of that. He was more interested in absorbing things than in playing any sort of a role. Going out to dinner with him was fantastic. And I mean, when I think about my 7 years with him, and we did, I don't know, 150 games together in 3 Super Bowls, all I really think about it are the great times we had at dinner talking about football, of course, but everything but football. And he was so special. By the way, I was just thinking of something this morning that really hasn't been out there that you'll be interested in this. So John comes to me in 2002 because Pat Summerall is going to step aside, and it's about time for John to, maybe either move on or get a new partner. And ABC approaches him, and I get John from 2002 through 2008, seven seasons. John almost came to Monday Night Football in 1994, which was when CBS lost the rights. Fox gained the rights to the NFC. Who were they going to hire? This is before they hire Pat and John and the whole production crew. So ABC now goes after John. And there is a meeting in New York right after this happened in 94, between a top ABC executive and John's representative at that time. And there was a handshake and a toast that John was going to come to Monday Night Football. And I got the call from our exec that night, and I went to bed that night thinking John is my partner beginning in 1994. The next day, Rupert Murdoch comes in and writes an $8 million a year check to John. And that was the end of that. And that created this loggerheads thing between the ABC executive and Barry's, John's representative at the time, which went on for a lot of years. But we thought we had John in 1994.
Did the network think of tuning him down a little bit? I don't know if he was he was so different from everybody else. So did they try to calm him down a little bit with his approach to being an analyst?
Well, I don't think Fox did. I think that had he come over to ABC, no. I mean, if you were going to sign John Madden to do the show,
yeah,
you wanted him to be John Madden. Why would you tune him down? The thing with him was he had established a new template. People loved it. He was a guy who, as you know, spawned a whole bunch of imitators, but nobody, there was only one John Madden, and nobody else could play the role of John Madden and be authentic. So there was no way you could do that. I know when John came to me after he'd been with Pat for 20 or 21 years, we talked about the fact that maybe I spoke more than Pat did. I wanted to engage John in certain conversations, which I'd heard him through the years. He would talk about, and I wanted to go deeper. And I said, hey, are you okay if we go this way? He said, I'd love it. So that was how we started. And then the first game that we did together was the Hall of Fame game in 2002. And Dan, by the time we got to the second commercial, I thought I'd work with him for 20 years.
Really?
It was that simple. It was that easy.
And it's tricky because as the play-by-play guy, setting up your analyst is delicate. And there's a delicate balance in those who do it well. Nance does it. What Nance does to me is more impressive than what Tony Romo does, because Jim has to kind of set up Tony and then weave back into the play-by-play. How did you do that with John, where he gets in and then gets out, and then you go back to the play-by-play?
I think when the two of us were paired together in 2002, I had heard him for over 20 years. He was always on the bus after he did a Sunday game watching Monday Night Football. He'd heard me do hundreds of games. So I know Fred Godelli, our producer at that time, and still is, obviously. Um, Fred had said to both of us when we were paired, hey, you guys want to do kind of a rehearsal game? We'll sit in the studio, we'll play a tape. And I was the senior partner at that point because John was coming to us. And I looked at John and I said, I don't think we need to do this. And then John told me on the way out of the room, he said, I'm glad you said that, because that would have been artificial. I think John and I, when we got together, understood each other's rhythm, and there was not the remotest concern on my part. It wouldn't fold in. Setting up the analyst is not necessarily asking a question. It's you got to know where the other guy's brain is. And we both had that rhythm. And the great thing about John is he was so well versed, not only in football, but everything. There wasn't one time I could say something that we hadn't talked about beforehand and know that John wouldn't be ready for it. He was that good. So when you're working with somebody like that, you have all the confidence in the world. You can go anywhere, and he's right with you.